Okay, welcome back. Um, I did do a little bit of work with optimization, but for whatever reason, the difference in frame rate is not very obvious on the finished recording. Like, I can see a difference on my monitor, but when I record it, they appear to just be the same, so I can't really show you that. But I will tell you what we're doing today, because, as I was saying, we've all the features that we've added so far are now saving and loading properly. So now that we're at this stage where we know how to save and load, we need to add a new feature. And the new feature that we're going to be adding is an inventory. And yeah, so I see quite a lot of tutorials on YouTube which talk about the grid-based Tetris style system, and I think it's a really wonderful system. It does look really great. But for the purposes of this game, I actually feel like, if I really want to, I can come back and change it and make it like a more complicated Tetris grid system with the rotation and moving the objects around and seeing the objects inside the bag is nice. However, a game that I used to play that I was a really big fan of, that this game is partially inspired by, is I'll just show you quickly. The level looks completely different now because it's just this plane here, but that's because I was looking at how to optimize things, and so I wanted to reduce the number of meshes to see if that made a difference. Um, but yeah, a game that I was sort of inspired by, a game that was sort of trying to make this a little bit like, not completely, but a little bit like, is Oblivion. And I'm not sure you ever played Oblivion. The inventory system is actually just a list. There's no grid. It's just alphabetized. You can kind of view different lists based on the item type. So it's a little bit more detailed than the tutorial I will be following, which I will mention in the comments. But I think what I'll have at the end of this should be a very, very basic start for my inventory. And I'm going to have to kind of go from there and sort of take that as a base and build upon it myself and see if I can expand it, make it work. And if that doesn't work, I can just delete the whole thing and follow a slightly longer, more in-depth tutorial. But it's a quick, short tutorial, so I'm not going to waste too much time. So yeah, that's what we're going to do now. And yeah, wish me luck. Okay, welcome back everyone. I just finished that 20-minute tutorial by Gurkha. And it's because a lot of the videos are all about, yeah, as I said, doing the grid-based inventory, and I actually just want to have a list, because I feel like a list is, like I said, I was thinking about Oblivion, so I need to expand quite a bit on what he has done here, but I did follow through with everything, and let's make two swords. So we're going to call the second sword steel sword, and we'll call this one iron sword. And ideally I would have a different sprite, but this is just for showing you that we can. Also, something else I need to fix that I think he knew about it, he saw it, but he didn't want to fix it, and that is, yeah, it's great, the camera doesn't move unless you click, of course, and if you're holding down click, then the camera does move, which is not very nice. So I think I know how to fix that, but I'm also not entirely sure how to fix that. I'll kind of explain what I mean in a minute, but let me show you. So we can pick the item up, and there it is in the inventory, and we can pick the item up, and there it is in the inventory, and nothing's getting reset. So where do we go from here? What was the thing I wanted to mention? Oh, about fixing it. So just fixing that, holding down the click thing. Where is it? I guess it's in the first person corner. That's when we're constructing it. Here we go. So input mode game and UI. I feel like if we just set input mode UI, then we will get the effect that we want. But if we do that, the keyboard won't work anymore. And that is the same situation that I have with my pause menu, where I can tab into the pause menu, but I can click and drag and nothing's happening, which is what I want. But when I tab, nothing's happening either. And the only way is to click resume. So I think that's because this is in a UI only. And if I set this to game and UI, then I'd be able to click and drag and the camera would move again. So I'm not entirely sure what I'll do about that. But yeah, obviously, lots to be done. Ideally, we'll have a few things here, such as how many of this one item do we have. So if I have 2 iron swords, there should be a tracker that says I have 1. And if I pick up another one, rather than saying iron sword, we should say iron sword times 2. That would be nice to do. And yeah, I'm gonna have buttons, and I think I should be able to click on it, and then we should be able to populate a scene here where we can see information about the sword, and somewhere here we can click to drop the sword, or we can click to equip the sword. But equipping is a little bit tricky because what I'm imagining is that we'll have weapons that are one-handed, such as a normal sword, and you can equip a normal sword or a normal mace or a normal axe. You can equip that, that's fine. And you can click equip shield, and that will be fine. But if you then go and equip a two-handed sword, we want to unequip the shield. And vice versa, if you equip a two-handed sword and then you go and equip a one-handed sword, it should unequip the two-handed sword. In the same way, if you equip the two-handed sword and you equip a shield, it will unequip the two-handed sword. If that makes sense. I think it makes sense. So yeah, quite a lot to go, but we're off to a start. We have a base to work upon. We can now add different items to the world, and we can add those items to the inventory, but as far as I can tell, there's nothing implemented without saving. So there we go. When we save and load, our inventory is wiped clean. So trying to save and load that stuff might be the first thing that I do before I go on to, yeah, say for instance, let's pick it up, save, and then load, and it's back again. So we'll need to save and load whether or not these objects are in the world and whether or not they are in the inventory. So there's two things to save. There is what's in the inventory, what's in the world. Once those two things are saving and loading, then I will perhaps go on to adding functionality such as dropping items. Because dropping items will then create one of those items in the world, which hopefully, if these items just existing in the world get picked up and saved properly, like I can have 10 of them and they'll get saved, or I can have 5 of them and they'll get saved, then it shouldn't matter if I add more of them into the world by clicking drop and creating new ones. Those new ones should just be added to the list that gets saved. So yeah, I don't know how long that's going to take. This might be the last video. No, I'll do another recording later because I'm going to do a bit more work on it today. Definitely, I still have plenty of time to do some more work on it. But yeah, not too bad. Yeah, alright. And I'm just thinking, yeah, should I really be so concerned with this? I don't know. I think I can, because I feel like this is probably a common problem with the input UI, game mode, UI mode thing. So I might be able to find out how to do that from somewhere. And that's probably not going to be too complicated. But yeah, in terms of plans, I think saving and loading items in the world and saving and loading items in the inventory and getting this mouse to click and getting this tab to work, I think those would both be really wonderful. Those things would be wonderful. So let me just go over it one more time. Saving items in the world, 1. Saving items in the inventory, 2. And then problem number 3, which I think is the same problem, which is I can't use tab here in the same way that I can't click here, and I can use I here, but I can also do that. So I think these two are the same problem. So we have problem number 1, and then we have problem number 2, and problem number 3. Wish me luck. So it's just a little bit. I haven't implemented it on this menu, so I can press tab and I'm not closing it out. But I'm happy to say I can press I, and I'm not rotating the camera, and I can click, and I'm not rotating that camera anymore, and I can press I, and I can rotate the camera, and the cursor's locked, and I can do it again. Because I did have it where it happened the first time, but then every time afterwards it wasn't happening. But that is happening, and I'll tell you why a little bit, in case you followed that tutorial and you were wondering how. So right over here, when we press I, we're flip-flopping between A and B, and when we do A, we're asking, does it already exist? Does it not exist yet? So this is the first time we press I when we start the game. This is the second time after it's been made. So basically this stuff is all the same as what I followed in the tutorial up until here. So this is the bit I added: set viewport mouse capture mode, no capture. And up here, I think with this one, it just ends here in the tutorial. I think he just sets the visibility to be visible. And so I added the set input mode, and I added the set mouse and the set view mode capture to basically be the same as what we have here. And then down here, so we have this stream. No, we've just done those two. And then the flip-flop for the B is just switching it off. So setting the visibility to be hidden. Setting the input to game mode only. This is all the same. This is all the same. I just added capture permanently. So the next thing I'm going to do is do that for my pause menu. So I'll have a nice smooth functioning pause menu in the same way. I mean, I probably will have like a close button as well to give people options like resume, but I'd like to have it so that we can press tab to jump back out of here. So I'm going to do that next, and once that's done, if I have a bit more time, I'll start playing around with attempting to save my inventory. No, first thing I'm going to do is actually try and just save the items in the world, like, yeah, whether they should be saved or not. Like, if it's there, it should be saved. If it's not there, then it should not be saved. Does that make sense? Like, it's just the whole, this is probably the problem, right, is that when we load the level, we're loading the original level, and when we do this, we've now modified the original level. So being able to save the level in its current state, so that when we load, we don't just load the original level as it was, but the modified version of it. That'll be tricky. But anyway, I'm going to get that menu system done, and then if I have a bit more time, I'm going to do the items being saved, if they're picked up or not, and then after that, saving actually what's being written into the inventory system. Okay, see you soon. Okay, welcome back. And once again, the solutions to these problems are actually the simplest. So I can tab in and out now, and it took me quite a while to figure out what was happening. I mean, not too long, maybe like 20-30 minutes to understand what was occurring. But the reason I could go in and out of my inventory just fine was because I hadn't set it to pause. And so the world was carrying on, and we were able to switch in and out of it. But I thought I do need the world to pause when I'm looking at the inventory, in the same way that it pauses when I look at the menu. But I thought, how come this tab is not taking me out? Like resume is working, why isn't the tab working? And I'll show you, in case you're ever in this situation yourself, or for multiple reasons. And then there might be reasons why you wouldn't do this, but it's right here. When you click on your input, execute when paused, yes please. So yeah, I was pausing the game, and once the game was paused, the inputs weren't working, and that was simply because this box by default is not checked. So it's checked now, and all that stuff's working well. So I shall move on now to doing some saving and loading of my very bare bones inventory system, and when my very, very basic stuff is being saved, then we'll be able to move on to adding more complexity to our inventory system, and kind of just keep, here it is, saving and loading as we go. Like, make sure every little thing that we add is, because we have like a net, if you will, with all these parts that are interwoven and connected with each other. And when we bring another part in, we need to make sure that part connects properly with everything else. So I'm pretty satisfied now with where I'm at, in the sense that, yeah, sure, these guys don't save yet, and this doesn't save yet. But going in and out of this is nice and smooth. Eventually I can have a button here to close it out, in the same way that we have a button here to close it out, but we can't just close it out with the keys, and the world pauses properly. So, yeah. And obviously, as you know, I don't know why the timing with the light and the sky and stuff is a little bit off at the moment, but it is all working just fine. So yeah, see, it just goes to nighttime a little bit earlier than the sky does. So yeah, I need to look at that, and it might be because, yeah, it might be because I was continuing a save or something. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna make it now so that when we save the game and load the game, those items which are no longer there will no longer be there, and vice versa. So if they are there, like if only one of them is there, then it should save it. You know what I mean? I think you know what I mean. It's pretty straightforward. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. Alright, had a little bit of a issue. I'll show you very briefly, and I'll go over how it all works once I've shown you that it works, because it doesn't completely work, but it almost works, which is what we need. Well, I mean, it basically works. I just haven't finished it, but it's this bad boy right here. So when I first plugged this into here, I hadn't set that, and then I set it, and it was producing all these errors. So I had to disconnect all of these, and then I could set that, and then I clicked refresh node, and then I connected it. Good thing is to read here. So here we can see array of, I'll just go over how it works, right? So this is the end of my loading, where I get my sky and I set my sky to be equal to the one that's inside the save. Now I go over and I look at all the items that are in the world that we've just loaded. For each item that's in here, so we have an array of items, and we have an array of items. So you see, the issue before was that this was an array of BP item, and this was an array of generic actors, because this was a generic actor when I connected them, and then I changed that after the fact. Anyway, so for each of the items that are existing in the world, we need to ask ourselves, does this thing exist inside of our saved world array? So we have an array of items that get saved. and we're just comparing the array here with the array here. And for all the items that are in here that are not in here, so this returns true if it is. If it's in both of them, then it's true. So if it's true, we don't want to do anything. But if it's false, which means that, you know, it wasn't in the world when we saved it, but it is now, then please just delete it for me. And in the save area, so I'm not bothering with doing it in the event begin play when I create the save, because obviously when you first begin the game, I mean, I may need to on this side for the loading, but I think I just did that for the loading. Anyway, I haven't fully experimented. We're going to do that in a little bit once I finish talking about this. But inside the save game, we have all the different things. So here we have the sky time of day getting set to, so the number that's inside of our save game file is set to being the number that it is at the time. So when it's 6 o'clock in the world and we save, the number that's in the save file becomes 6 o'clock, right? So now we get all of the actors in the world. We've just pressed save, and we just go and have a list of all the items in the world, and we set that to be equal to our saved world items. So whatever items are in the world when we click save get set to be that saved world list, and then we save the game to the slot. So let me show you real quick. Notice how there's no items in the world, but that's because we just load straight into the world. So if we jump back and we begin a new game, so in our new game, this is the level that we've designed, the level that we originally built, where we have all the items that are untouched. So we'll take one item and we'll save the game, and we'll turn around and we'll load the game, and look, it's not there anymore. And we can do it again, and we can load, and it is there because we didn't save. So if we take it, load it, or even, let's take both of them. So they're both gone. Save, load. Oh, good. And I'm curious to see if I continue. Yeah, that works. And I'm going to go new game, because that overwrites any existing saves. And I'll just quit and continue. Interesting. So they're not there anymore. And I think it's because, yeah, we only create that list when we click save. So what happens here is, yeah, we create a new game. So I think I just need to add it to the new game section, because when we make a new game, our items in the save file is empty, even though there is a save file. And so when we quit and we continue, it's going to look at all the items in the world and say which one of these are in the save file, because if they're not in the save file, let's delete them. So they all get deleted. So I just need to do that step, which is in the save step, which is just get all the actors and set them to that. I just need to put that into the bit where we start the game, because, yeah, you just saw why. And when I was saying that it's not completely working, all I was referring to is that it's just the permanence of the world objects that are saving, but the inventory should just, yeah, doesn't save yet. So I haven't worked on that. I haven't touched that or thought about it. I just thought I would try and get the items to save and load so they're not respawning, and that's good. And I have a feeling that because we're just getting the list of ones that are in the world and adding and removing them, I think if the player, say we have a drop button and we're pushing the drop button and we're adding an actor to the world, and then we save the game, then that item that's been dropped should be added to the list that's in the saved game world. So hopefully, yeah, it should work when I implement the drop feature. I shouldn't need to save new dropped items in a different way to the way that I save the ones that are originally in the world. So I just need to implement these two nodes nice and clean, nice and simple. Just get these two nodes and add them into our event begin play does save game exist false create save game. So when we create the save game and we set the original things to be in the save file, we want to set this one as well. So I'll do that real quick, and then I'll probably start looking at trying to save the inventory itself. So yeah, I'll see you in a little while. Okay, so it's a little bit of a mess, but let me try to explain what's going on. So over here is where I left. We get all the items that exist in the world. We set them to the list that's in our save file. And now I have a new thing in my save file, which is a list of items that exist in the inventory. And we find this by getting all the children of the vertical box list that is inside our inventory. So our inventory has a list in it, and that list contains children, which are all the different items. So this list of things that are in the inventory is set to the saved inventory. And for each of the items in the saved inventory, I'm just converting its position on the list. So the first item is 0, the second item is 1, 2, 3, and so on. Converting that into a string and printing it so that I can see, are they really being saved? And then go along and save. So let me show you what happens. New game. And if I save the game, nothing happens. If I pick up one, iron sword, picked up item, we can see the iron sword. And when we save the game, we have 0 being printed because, yes, there is one item in our saved item index, like our inventory items in the save file, there is one. So that sword that we picked up was saved. And if I pick up the second sword and I save, we have 0 and 1 being printed. So both of the items are being saved, but the next step where we load the items, so every time the game starts the inventory is empty. So in a way it's kind of the opposite to what's happening here. So when we start a new game, the world is full, and when we save and load these guys, we always load up a world full of items, and then we remove whichever ones are not in the saved list. And I'm going to have to do the reverse problem with the inventory, because the inventory is always empty, but we have a save file which has 1 and 2, as we saw, 0 and 1, which are the items that we picked up. So they are in there. It's just converting that into a way to add them to the inventory on load, basically. So when we click load or we click continue, what should be happening is those ones there are being added, because we're going to look at what's in the inventory, nothing. What's in the save inventory are 0 and 1, so get 0 and 1 and please put them in the inventory for me. So that's the bit that I'm stuck on right now, and it's starting to get late, but I would say that we're halfway there in the sense that we are saving them. It's just that final step of how to properly add them back into the inventory. So this is how I had it right now, where I'm comparing. I mean, it's all kind of a mess because I was trying a few things and moving stuff around, as you can see. This is all of this stuff here is actually the stuff that's happening here, because I think I was getting some errors before, because it's only the very first time after you play the game and you press I that the inventory gets created. And so if we start the game and attempt to add items to an inventory that doesn't exist, it's a little confused. So now we actually create the whole inventory here, and then we switch the inventory off as if it wasn't on. So the moment the game begins, we create an empty inventory and we turn it off. And everything seems to be stable and working so far. But maybe this is overwriting, but no, I feel like I'm going to be adding the items over here, so whatever happens over here shouldn't really overwrite what's happening over here. But yeah, I gotta call it a day because it's getting late and I got some other business I must take care of. You know how life is. But we're nearly there. I'm pretty satisfied with the progress, you know. I'm starting to understand a little bit better how things work. But I think, yeah, it's going to have to be something to do with the functions that we've created. Add item to list. So I think we're going to have to do add item to list. I think that'll probably be how we do it for each item that's in the save file that's not in the inventory. Add that item to the list. But it's kind of, I don't want to ramble too much, but yeah, it's pretty confusing stuff. But as I said, halfway there. Anything else I want to talk about? No, I think I already mentioned it. Because I'm happy, you know, this saves, and this saves, it just doesn't load back. So once this side is loading properly, I mean these save and load properly, so as you saw earlier today, we can save and load the game, and that's all proper and nice. We just have this final step of re-adding the items to the inventory. Once that's done, then I will begin to make it so that I can click on the items to view a little description, and click to drop the item, and click to equip, which for now will do nothing because, as you know, we haven't even touched on any weapon systems or enemies or any of that stuff. I wanted to get all this really boring UI stuff working, so the first thing we did was the main menu, and then we did the pause menu, and now we're doing the inventory menu. So getting all the functionality for all the menus, which includes all the saving and loading and like the persistence of items in the world, or rather the lack of persistence, because you know, we want the state, the dynamic things that change need to get saved. And yeah, we can remove items from the world, so that saves. Once I add that drop button, it'll be interesting to see if I can save those new items that are being dropped. I think it should be fine, because we just get all actors of that type. So if we're creating actors of that type, and then when we save, we get all actors, that should include the new ones. Okay, I'm happy to say that we did get there in the end. So we can start a new game with an empty inventory, and we'll save the game now. And we'll pick up one sword, and we can see that sword in the inventory. But let's load back our old one, and we have a blank inventory. Now let's pick up both swords, and open the inventory. We have both swords. We can save the game now. There's no swords anyway. And we can, let's quit. And let's continue. There's no swords. They are there, where they belong. Which was, that's it basically. Yeah, that's what I'm so happy about. Something I want to try though is what happens if we do it in a reverse order. So let's pick up the steel sword and then the iron sword. So steel and then iron. Save. Quit. Continue. Yeah, steel and then iron. And I'll just show you that the load, obviously, because it's the same as continue. So we'll go over here. It's more noticeable. Hey. So now I'll just show you a little bit about how that worked. I'll do my best. So this right here is the world items, and we ask ourselves if this is contained in this. What are we asking? So we're creating a big list of items in the world right here. And for each of the items in the world, we're asking, are those items inside of our saved list? Because if they're not, we must get rid of them. And because this one works in the reverse order, the problem I actually had, the final solution that I fixed it with, was swapping these two around. Because I had this one up here, I had this one over here, and this one down here. So before I was asking, give me the list of items in the inventory, which is always going to be none, because when you start the game there's nothing in the inventory. And then it was asking for each of the things in that empty list, are they contained inside the saved list? Because if they aren't, can we add them? And obviously there's nothing in this list when we call this function at the beginning, when we start the game. There's nothing in the inventory, so that's why it didn't work. So I swapped them around, and now we go, okay, we've got a list of items that are saved, so there is items in this saved list. Let's get this list here, and let's ask ourselves, are any of these items in the inventory? Obviously none of them are going to be in the inventory because it's blank. So for all the items that are in the saved list that are not in the inventory, please add those saved items to the inventory. And it is just directly add item to inventory. It wasn't, because I was originally thinking, you know, that we need to add a child save slot component to the vertical list, something like that. But obviously it's all done inside the inventory component. So as long as I'm able to reference the inventory component, I can just, basically I just need to get the string, and the inventory itself is just an array of strings. So that's how we were able to do that. And I'm wondering, you know, if I start making the item slot things more complicated so that it's more than just an item name, but like a picture and other numbers, I wonder if that will complexify it a bit. So it remains to be seen. We're going to start implementing other features into our inventory system. Well, first, we just had to make sure that everything that we've added so far in terms of features is able to actually save and load back, and I'm super happy that it does. So thanks for watching. I need to edit that video now and publish it because it's getting a bit late. So thanks for watching.